one of the interesting things is during downturns or during, people's low times in their life, collectibles are often turned to, because maybe the only enjoyment they're going to have is through the things they love or the memories they had, during happier times.
Right.
And a good example of that was during the Depression and shortly, during the rebuilding, shortly after, the hottest business in the world was movie theaters. People wanted to escape. People wanted to escape the hard times of the Depression during the late 1920s, early 1930s. And so that's where my parents came up from. They came up from that time period. They wanted to be entertained. They needed to be entertained because of the difficult times, but collectibles were the last thing on their mind. I didn't have the advantage of my parents, having that collector's bug.
Right.
For me, why did it happen? It's really, really hard to say, but it happened right away. In the late 1950s, when I was just 4 or 5 years old, I can remember to this day collecting bottle caps with football players on the inside of the bottle caps.
Okay.
And I can remember getting those little bottle caps and taping them to a sheet, with my Los Angeles Rams guys. I get so happy when I got one of theirs. I go with a magnet to all the little, I've never told these stories before, by the way. I go to all the vending machines where you click off the top and drink your thing with a magnet to get those bottle caps out of there because I wanted to complete, the sheet, complete the set.
Yeah.
That was my first exposure. And certainly what proved the importance of being a completionist, having a set, having to complete it, no matter how hard it was. So that's where now that didn't start from any influence or whatever. It was just something I wanted to do. And then I got into science fiction magazines, old pulps from the 1920s. Which were kind of, a little bit available. Most of them were burned up for World War II, were burned up for the war. But some got through. And then Mad magazines, which came out in the 1950s. That was huge. I loved Mad magazines. Yeah. And in fact, back then it was a comic. It was Mad Comics before it turned into Mad magazines. Because the comic board came and put restrictions on what was allowed inside comics. And Mad was a little edgy even then.
Yeah.
And so they changed their format to a magazine so they weren't covered by that law. And so that started on issue. It's crazy, I know these things. That started on issue number 24. And I still have, I think, my original one that doesn't have the cover on it anymore of that. But anyway, so then I started collecting that Silver Age comics from the 40s, 50s, 60s, or 50s and 60s. Few Golden Age, not much, unfortunately.
Right.
I don't have them today. And then it was pretty much everything. From then, I loved the television cards, like the Munsters and the Addams Family. And
Star Trek. Right?
Oh, the Star Trek cards.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say I either had or have every single TCG game ever created.
Right.
At one point or another, I either had it or I have it today. I would say we could fill up a storage container full of my magazines and comics and trading cards, just with those. Now, I think it's only fair to say 95% of all that stuff is probably worth absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just total, value-wise, no value. I was going to say garbage because I love them so much that I can't use that word for them. But money-wise, there is no money there at all.
No monetary value.
No monetary value at all.
Maybe there's a couple things you got to start digging.
Now there's a few things. Yeah, there are a few things.
Each set has their trophy.
Right. Yes,
their
true.
case cards.
Yeah, and usually it's the number one card because we used to always put cards in numerical order, and the number one was always hit with the rubber band that we put around them. So the first and last card in the set always had a premium, no matter what it was, though they normally put a good guy in the number one spot.
Yeah.
But anyway, I loved collecting. I got into just absolutely